This conference will now be
Good. Call to order the May 19th, 2022 Planning Commission. Our first or second agenda item is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Greg, will you do the roll call?
Absolutely. Let's start at the top. Trevor Dombach.
Present.
Tim Dugan.
Here.
Andrew Flagg.
Here.
Brian Height.
Here.
Diane Kelly.
Here.
Mark Luth.
Here.
David Wilson.
Here.
7 are in attendance. We have enough for a quorum.
Okay, will you do the meeting rules?
Okay, these are the rules for remote participation and etiquette during Planning Commission meetings. For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. Please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute microphones of remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. We will start with no time limits, but the Planning Commission Chairman may impose a time limitation if there are many questions or if the meeting is running short on time. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed and state your name, address, and comment or question. Please turn the podium microphone on before speaking and off when done. For remote attendees, the chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address in the chat box, which is indicated by the speech balloon icon in the upper right. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute all callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making a comment. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Everybody learned who the planning commissioners are. I'd like to introduce Jennifer Alderfer, our assistant solicitor, Anthony Talarita, our engineer, Dave Manhart, director of community development, Laura Harrier, our zoning officer, and Greg Adams, our township planner. Our next agenda item is the approval of minutes from the April 21st, 2022 meeting. Are there any comments or corrections? I have several.
I do too.
On agenda item 7, it says Mr. Harmon stated that he attended the LVPC technical meeting. I don't know where that came from. So I think that needs to be stricken from the
Absolutely.
minutes.
Copy and paste error.
Those are the only ones I have.
Well, I have my previous comment on the Cliff Note styles of the notes, and of course, then you referenced the video. In the video, the first 12 minutes, there's no sound on your YouTube site.
Okay.
Okay, with those corrections, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 I'll
All those
abstain. I
opposed?
wasn't at that. I wasn't at the 21st meeting.
Can we approve it with only 2 sitting members? Guess we have to.
I
I
guess.
Yes, you can.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
approved.
Okay, the next agenda item is the comprehensive plan review, a preview by Mr. Manhart.
So we typically will review the comprehensive plan at the end of the meeting. But we've moved it up to the beginning of the meeting to give public, because we typically have higher attendance at the beginning of meetings than we do at the end of meetings. So we moved it to the front. And just the update for the comprehensive plan is we added it's called the Spotlight on our website, where we will present the information for the comprehensive plan. So this will remain in this location throughout the process. And based on the workshops we've had, we've compiled a working draft of the goals and objectives that we've been reviewing. So there's accordion widgets with all of the goals and objectives. There's also links to comment forms. So if anybody has a comment on any of these goals and objectives, strategies, there's links there. So as we go through this, this will essentially be the draft copy of the comprehensive plan. For example, we updated the demographics, so we put that on this section of this document. So this will constantly be updated, so check it after every workshop, comment, read through. So this is kind of where we will be building the comprehensive plan and the outline. So I wanted to review that. The next workshop meeting is June 7th. So please attend. We will be covering utilities, community facilities, and housing at that meeting. So that's what we have for the comp plan update.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is our subdivision reviews. We have 3 plans for review this evening. The first one is the Willows at Calvary Temple, Major Plan 2022-106, and it's the request for sketch plan review. Greg, will you do the staff presentation?
Absolutely. This is an application to further develop the property located at 3436 Winchester Road. The plan proposes to construct 2 30-unit apartment buildings and a 106-space parking lot in the southwest corner of the property, and 2 30-unit apartment buildings, a 3,560 square foot clubhouse, and a 92-space parking lot in the northeast corner of the 17.39 acre parcel. The property is zoned high-density residential R10. Calvary Temple of Allentown, PA is the owner. Ingerman Development Company, LLC is the applicant. And since this is a sketch plan, I'll just go to the recommendation. The department recommends that the applicant utilize the comments of the reviewing agencies and those of the Planning Commission to assist in the preparation of the preliminary plans.
I should have started with, we do this in 4 parts. It's a staff presentation, which Greg just completed. Then we'll have the applicant make their presentation. Then it's courtesy of the floor for any citizen comment. And then the planning commission will make a decision as a sketch plan. We'll most likely take it under advisement. So will the applicant please introduce themselves and their team? Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Long from Ingerman, the developer, and then Seth Gaiman from Bowler is the civil engineer. He is here with us. And then also we have the leadership from the church is here also. So probably this is the first time you've seen it. We have had the benefit of meeting and talking with Greg, Laura, and Dave previously. So they have met Jeff, but I think at this point, while not directly related to the planning issues, I think it is related to just have a little bit of an understanding of the genesis and the purpose of the project, and then we'll get into some of the more land development related details. Jeff.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Great.
So thank you. My name is Jeffrey Long, and I am a development principal with Ingerman Development Company. So about 2 to 3 years ago, in pre-pandemic time, at least I can say that, we started meeting with the leadership of the Calvary Temple Church about their property. They have a very large parcel that's very prominent. You see it from the highway, you see it when you're going shopping at Target. I think it's pretty easy to know where it is. And in some respects, that property has not been fully utilized. It has a church on it, but there are development potentialities that exist there. And there is residential zoning for high density as well. So we started a conversation that went on for about a year or two about what the church would want, how development could benefit the church, and how it could also be beneficial to the community. And after many consultations and almost about a year of sketch planning, we met with the township professionals a few times and came up with the development that we are talking about here today. And for us, this is a first step. We are getting out in front of what we know is going to be a long development process that involves township officials, planning commission members, as well as the professionals that you have with us here. And what we're trying to do and accomplish tonight is to kick around some ideas. And like many sites, there's always challenges. And so we're going to be talking and looking through some of these challenges that exist on this site and how best we can utilize the development potential, help bolster what the temple provides, and also allow them to realize some of the development opportunity that exists on the property. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Seth from Bowler Engineering, who will talk about what we're talking about specifically. And we also, like I said, or as Eric had said, we do have the leadership of the church here as well to answer any questions about their current operations and things that you might have.
Yeah, could you put the sketch plan up on the screen? That'd be helpful. Seth Gaiman with Bowler Engineering, project manager on this project, working with Ingerman. So the subject site, as Jeff mentioned, is you're probably all fairly familiar with. Existing location of the Calvary Temple. It's a 17 plus acre site, zoned R10 high density residential. It's located on Winchester Road, adjacent to Lester Place and Kingston Place, and it contains the 48,000 square foot approximately Calvary Temple church facility, along with supporting access, parking, stormwater, landscape, and lighting. The proposed development, as mentioned, includes a total of 4 apartment buildings and 1 clubhouse. As you can see, the plan is oriented north to the bottom. So in the top right area would be the southeastern corner. There are two apartment buildings up in that area, both of them approximately 10,000 square feet footprint, 30 units in each at 3 stories. In the bottom left corner, that'd be the northeast, 2 apartment buildings and the clubhouse. The apartment buildings, again, are approximately 10,000 square feet at 3 stories, and the 3,600 square foot clubhouse. This proposed development will include parking to support these apartment buildings, as well as stormwater management, landscaping, lighting, all the required improvements to support those developments. We believe that the proposed plan provides a good layout of the apartment buildings based on the things we had discussed in the past with the staff. It provides walkability, connections to public sidewalk. There are Lanta bus stops nearby, walkability to the shopping center, grocery stores, shopping. So it's a good location for residential. We have, put this preliminary sketch plan together. Obviously, there's a lot of engineering to be done on the plan. We have received the professionals' review letters and acknowledge, the lift that it's going to be. So really, as was mentioned, just here to get your feedback, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I guess the one thing that obviously jumps out for anyone who drives down Winchester Road with any frequency is there's development proposed on what is now a basin. You may have been made aware that that's actually a shared basin between the township and the property owner pursuant to an agreement. And one of the meetings that we had was a discussion about, we think things can be improved as part of this development if that basin is not where it is right now, and stormwater management for the entire site as part of this project is undertaken. We got the sense from that discussion, and I'll leave any details to the engineers, but we got the sense from that discussion that Public Works seemed to think that was something that could be beneficial, because obviously we need, as part of this, the consent of the township because on that shared basin to do something different than what's out there today. Because 40, 50 years ago, we all know it was a lot worse. The conditions, my cousin lost her car in Crest Plaza back in the 70s, a long time ago. It has gotten better over time, but we think there are still some improvements that can be done. And obviously, as part of this process, we presumed we'd have to show you that we're making improvements that make sense to move that, because obviously that layout doesn't work unless we move that. So I don't know if Greg or Dave, they were at that meeting also, but I kind of think that's where we finished up, which was we've got our proposal's going to suggest that we can do something different. And if you're comfortable with it and it makes sense because it's an improvement, we would hope we would get some teamwork on that.
Yeah, I could take this.
Yeah.
Just to summarize a little bit about the specifics there, right now, the basin as it exists was designed in a prior time when you did not need to design to the 100-year storm. And so as it stands right now, part of the issue that you have with flooding is that storms have gotten worse over time, and that basin doesn't necessarily have the capacity. So one of the conditions that, and it comes out in one of the memos, I think it was the DPW memo, it says very clearly, like, this basin needs to be designed to the 100-year flood, which would be a marked improvement over what the current existing condition is. So that is part of this proposal, is to make any basin improvements that we do as part of our residential development to make sure that that basin that is for the entire community right now, a 100-year basin, as well as a basin that is cared for by us collectively. And just to go into a little bit, what we're talking about is a partnership between Ingerman and Calvary Temple. So Calvary Temple will retain ownership of the property. They will also retain joint venture ownership with us of the buildings. And so what would happen is that any improvement, any change to the basin would take the obligation off of South Whitehall Township to care for it right now and put it onto us and professional management at our cost. So that is part of this discussion in terms of utilizing that space somehow in some sort of development opportunity. So that's part of what we're talking about.
So at the end of the day, your presumption was if we achieve what you just said, it makes sense for the stormwater to be redesigned and the project to be able to look like it's shown on that plan.
Correct. That's the goal. So, it obviously has to come out as a beneficial agreement between our partnership and the township. And we think that taking the obligation on ourselves and then also improving the quality or the capacity of that basin would be not just a short term, but a longer term benefit to everyone.
Any questions on that?
Granted, this is a sketch, but you don't necessarily show any alternative area for stormwater, at least denoted on your plan, considering almost the entire area of your parking and apartment complexes over the existing basin now.
Correct. So that the bottom left side of the plan there, the basin's going to be in the same location. It's going to be underground. There are underground chambers, and we're going to use that to the storm trap, for example, is one manufacturer. They do concrete precast chambers, and it'll provide. Our goal is to provide increased storage compared to the existing condition. Once again, the goal will be to be able to route the 100-year storm event. Currently, the basins are, fairly shallow, but based on some of the invert information we have, we could go a little bit deeper. So the goal would be to provide more storage underground in that same location. We would still look to provide, water quality and everything that's necessary to meet the county, state, and the township requirements. And there is also additionally in the top right corner of the site there is still open landscape area. We had talked about potential for an above ground basin in that area to manage runoff from that portion of the development. So we do have options. And once again, the goal for the existing basin is to convert that to underground.
Question I have is, my understanding, it's a regional basin. There's about 300 acres draining to it. And once you do new development, you're going to be kicked into bringing up everything up to current standards. In terms of infiltration, the Lehigh Valley has a lot of karst conditions. You'll be required to do infiltration. So are you proposing to infiltrate below the buildings?
So I believe the goal that we have considered is utilizing that top right area, whether it's for spray irrigation or infiltration. Certainly there are numerous pervious areas throughout the site that aren't going to be covered with the new buildings or pavement. So spray irrigation would also be an option if we have challenges due to the karst conditions. Regarding the 300 acres, certainly we will control that from rate perspective. But my understanding would be that bringing up that up to code does not necessarily mean that we would be needing to infiltrate from that off-site drainage area.
A lot of acreage just for rate control as well. But we don't necessarily need to get into the weeds with that. I guess my main concern is the zoning, and I want to make it clear, it's not Planning Commission's purview. With zoning, that's the zoning hearing board, but the review letter indicates there's several use variances that will be needed. So you'll have to work that out with the zoning hearing board. And these aren't dimensional variances. These are use variances that the justification for use variances is substantially higher than dimensional, but that's for the zoning hearing board. So just want to let you know about that. That's not really our purview.
Yeah, I don't know if it's variance is plural necessarily. I think the issue is that when I read the letter, the statement is you can't have two uses on the same lot in the R10 district. That's how I read it. Interestingly enough, though, apartments, for example, like these are allowed in two zoning districts, R10 and the HC or the HC1, I believe, right? Coordinated commercial development is allowed in the HC1. So theoretically, I will tell you that if this were in the HC1, a place of worship is permitted, apartments are permitted, and it could look identical to what's laid out there today. I'm not saying that's the be all and end all, but what I'm saying is I'm not quite sure why a development that looks like this with a church and apartments is more appropriate in HC1 necessarily than in the R10. But we're going to look at that. We understand that. But this is not a situation where I've got a residential area and I come in and say, geez, I'd like to put a waste transfer station there. Can you give me a use variance for that? That's not the case here. So it's a lot closer call. Message heard. We understand. We've got to examine it. But it is not what I would call your traditional, I want to put a commercial or industrial use in a residential district. And I would note, and if I could find this quickly, I think in Greg's memo, he does indicate that, let me find that, which I found interesting also. The comprehensive plan envisions a D1 campus character area, which includes mixed use development, pedestrian connectivity, and supports public transportation. Oh my gosh, that's what we've got here in my mind. So again, I don't think it's so out of character just because, unfortunately, by the way the ordinance is drafted right now, we do have a little bit of a hiccup in that regard.
So zoning hearing, that's
fair,
pretty large text.
Yeah, fair comment,
Message received.
but message received. But I always feel compelled to say something, right?
My question has nothing to do with stormwater.
Okay.
Although it could. It's more about traffic and the network.
Yeah.
at the northeast corner of, or west corner of your property, there's a driveway that goes into the office building. Is that like an existing agreement? And my concern is Pond Road is going to become, they're going to be going straight through there to get to those southwest buildings.
So you think people are going to come from Walbert up Pond and make a left?
They're going to go straight into the office.
Oh,
building.
to cut through. I got you.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Because Pond lines up with the office
Exactly.
building. Gotcha. Okay.
And that's already certain hours of the day. That intersection
All right.
can be a challenge, especially for the office workers leaving. They had asked for that to be a four-way stop in the past. So I just want to know what the.
Okay, we'll have to take a look at that. We, in all candor, that's not something that came up in the discussions. You know.
Every plan that comes through planning commission, traffic is.
Well, I'm not saying not traffic. I'm saying that particular question.
Okay, but
Yeah.
that.
Kudos to you, Mr. Height, for coming up with something we hadn't talked about internally.
It's one of the benefits of living here for 52 years,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So
I have 10 more years to catch up with you. So.
understood.
Yeah.
But that's going to be my concern. And also, you presented that, you have Crest Plaza, that's a destination. There's going to need to be significant upgrades to crosswalks along Winchester. So those are my feedback for you to
Thank you.
digest. Any other questions?
So with the potential stormwater inclusion that you have going underground, would you potentially envision an above ground overage storage tank? Or do you not think that would be necessary?
An above ground overage storage tank?
Yeah, the small silos that you often see.
We're not currently planning on that based on the preliminary calculations that we've run. Certainly as we get, more detailed survey and whatnot, we'll take a more detailed look at what needs to be done for storage, but based on the calculations done so far, it's not necessary.
I believe you'll need to have a lot of coordination with township engineer because that's a lot of off-site flow and there'll need to be a lot of coordination.
Understood.
And especially because of our existing systems at Crest Plaza and on the other side of 22, they're all coordinated. So it's, my other question is, the buildings seem to be separated, obviously, on one side of the parcel to the other. You have the clubhouse, so I'm assuming that all the apartments can use the clubhouse. So you should have some sort of pedestrian circulation plan, especially when church is in session and if they grow their church.
Part of this, and it's a great point, and part of taking a step back for a second, part of this whole discussion is how to re-energize some of the space and some of these grounds. Bringing people onto the site, bringing people into the community, from the community into the site, and having them more engaged with it. So yes, this is part of a comprehensive look at how to really create a more vibrant space here. And so yeah, that includes pedestrian access, walkability, and also coordination between the programs and the many programs that the temple runs, from childcare and everything else that they do, as well as they have gym and everything else going on there with our management staff and the community building that'll be available to everybody on the other side.
I do know that Perkiomen Tours runs buses through and they park patrons on the site. So that has to be planned for as well if that's going to continue. So my thoughts.
No, I think it's a great point. And part of this, like I said, part of this whole exercise is not just to, it's to bring this opportunity to Calvary Temple and allow them to relook at how they do what they do currently and how to invigorate it further.
Another item I see on the site layout plan, it indicates 313 required parking spaces. And then it says 198 provided, and then it says variance. Just expand upon the parking?
Sure. The initial look we took at the plan was based on a 1.5 spaces per unit, which is typical, consistent with ITE, the ITE parking manual. So that's initially what we looked at. I think there's certainly opportunity for more parking, but just based on what we've seen on other sites, it's certainly consistent and sufficient for this type of use.
But it's not compliant with the township's ordinance,
Understood.
though. Okay.
And I mean, part of the further discussion is there's a lot of parking that's out there right now. And so it's trying to account for all the current uses and then what we're adding, and then to figure out what the actual balance of ordinance required spaces are. So, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you just got to get to zoning. You got to get your use variance, and then you got to get some of this relief you need for some of the parking and even density, it looks like.
Once again, part of this further discussion about what actual lots are. I mean, I hate it's, and that's part of what we're trying to do here is trying to flush out all the elements here, because, what it looks like versus trying to piece together through the ordinance what the requirements are, specifically when it comes to creating lot lines, I think is something that we've, trying to work through. And so this was, like I said, a first step and part of the initial conversation to kind of understand where everyone stood, because it gets a lot harder if we're trying to integrate a lot of comments from the planning commission, very good comments, as well as trying to meet ordinance requirements. We didn't want to get too far down the road and then have this conversation.
Yeah, I think that, once you get through that, this plan will morph a couple times before it gets back to us.
Right.
Is there any general reasoning for locating the buildings on the bottom left of the plan opposed to higher up? Just general thoughts.
That was based on discussion we had with the staff at a staff meeting. I think originally we had the buildings up in the top right corner, and it was discussed and recommended that we consider shifting things around and spreading them out.
But also, just for clarity, I mean, the Calvary Temple has a very prominent view shed that they care deeply about. And so we're not just trying to meet, zonal requirements. That's part of the challenge here, right? Is that it's pretty simple to draw a box and then drop buildings in based on ordinance. But there are certain considerations, specifically, like I said, when it comes to a very prominent view shed that is very valued by their community, the community in general. Just doing, like I said, a simple site plan and dropping buildings where they could go, that might take away something that they don't want to see taken away.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Sir, could you come to the mic and identify yourself and give your address?
My name is Don Divert. I live at 1459 Leicester Place, which is directly east of Calvary Temple. I had some remarks I was going to make, but if I get an answer to the question I'm going to ask, I won't have to make any remarks. I'm very interested in that basin that we're talking about. That has overflowed violently in the last several years. My question is, the plans that they're talking about basin-wise, is that going to ensure that there will never be any flooding in that area from that basin in the future?
I think it's difficult to guarantee that any site will never flood, but we will take into account the goal is to design it for the 100-year storm event, which is the standard for stormwater across the country, really. And currently, the basin, based on our preliminary calculations, does not actually manage that 100-year storm event. And it does, in our calculations, show that it currently overflows. Our goal is to improve that, improve the basin storage, and be able to actually control it up through this 100-year storm event. So
you're going to be able to control the flooding, the overflow. You're going to continue with the basin there
Yes, the basin is going to be underground. There are going to be underground chambers that will provide basin storage instead of above ground in the grass basin.
Yeah, a full engineering design has not been done, but township requirements and state requirements would require them to improve the situation. They would have to do that per Department of Environmental Protection and the County Conservation District. So there's a lot of regulations that would require them to do that. Currently, there is not a solution. It's a very large challenge, but there's not a solution yet, but they would have to find a solution.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Sir?
I'm Doug Frederick. My address is 6265 Whitetail Drive in Coopersburg, but I'm a partner at the building located at 3500 Winchester Road. Calvary Temple has been a great neighbor, and we want to support them in every way that we can. But we also want to be, I applaud the comments that the Planning Commission has had so far in their responsible perspectives. As a 25-year resident of that office building, one of the things that I am concerned about is the comment about the underground retention and taking the township out of that picture, because the history of that is that in the failure of that basin, this township has stepped in more than one time because it was something that couldn't be controlled by the property owner. And, you know, underground, I'm familiar with it because we had looked at that site as well. I thought that underground would be a solution. But it's concerning because, you know, you don't know what's going on underground. And if there's a failure, my biggest concern about that is that the correction is limited to the ability of the property owner and not the municipality behind it. And as we all know, as Mr. Wilson pointed out, there's a large piece of property from south of 22 that comes underneath 22 and that just drains that whole area. So while I'm supportive of Calvary and their efforts, I want to be very cautious about that. You know, that would be our biggest concern, because if it backs up, you know, it's a problem. I also appreciate the comment about the traffic and the potential of the traffic coming through our facility there. You know, we spent a small fortune over the last 25 years trying to make that a Class A, retain that as a Class A office building in a Class A township. And we'd want to be involved in addressing that. And I trust that our good neighbors at Calvary would cooperate with that. And you know, I don't have any concern that we'd be able to work something out there, but we would not want to, thank you, Mr. Height, we would not want to flow of that traffic coming through that parking lot. So thank you for that. One of the things, and again, I'd certainly welcome a get together and talk about these finer points with the applicant. But one of the things that hasn't mentioned, I saw a real quick picture, but you know, the quality of the apartments, what that's going to be, what's it going to look like? You know, Calvary's been doing a great job over the last month or so, really dressing up their building, and that's terrific. Thank you for that reference. You know, but the materials used, you know, because we would be very interested in maintaining that to be a very attractive house of worship and kind of complex and our building. And you know, I'm optimistic that could all work out, but I'll look forward to continuing to be involved, and thank you all for your comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Obviously, the retention, Barry Akel, 1302 Devon, right next to the retention pond. I'm there for 42 years and the water's gotten awful close to coming over, but it hasn't. So how are we planning on doing the transfer from that pond underground? Because now there's like a canal, a canal that runs between those two ponds. Are we doing away with that and running pipes underneath, or how are you going to get the water out of that? And are you planning on doing anything, excuse me, with that pond, the one that's there now? Because it gets close.
So yes, there would be underground stormwater pipes that would lead to the underground basin. It would be designed to manage, to convey and manage the flows that are coming to the site. Once again, we run preliminary calculations. It's going to go through a full design. We have a very talented engineering staff that will be able to review the plans and make sure it meets all the township and
So you're not really
applicable
planning on
requirements.
doing anything with that pond? The one that's there right now, the smaller pond.
The two ponds that are in the corner there.
I think
Well,
actually,
no, the one.
he's
smaller
speaking of
The
Devon,
one
which
right
is,
there on Devon in the corner.
Oh, okay. No, we're not working back in that area. Sorry. I was talking about the northeast corner
Yeah.
of
All
the
right.
Calvary lot.
So we're gonna try to get all that water out of there. Okay. The underground stuff.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ray Ricketts. I'm the lead pastor at Calvary Temple. As Mr. Frederick did indicate that previously over the years that we had failures to maintain the pond and the overflow. And we cannot go and fix what was done in the past. Tragically, we were in a horrific financial situation where it was just impossible. There was wanting to do it is one thing. Having the means to do it, that was something else. Because we were not able to do so, the township came in and solved it and gave us a bill. We paid. We have never argued about it, right? As far as we're concerned, we see three partnerships going on right now, right? It's a partnership between Calvary Temple and Ingerman, but it's also a partnership between the township, right? And so we when we were asked at one of the meetings, would we be willing to take on the responsibility? We said absolutely, right? We want to be good neighbors, and in fact, we have been extremely good neighbors in the last 12 years, right? And we have worked with this township in multiple ways. Then every way that we can, we do. We have worked with community groups. Everything that you see community groups utilize, we don't charge anything. Why? We're part of the community. This is our way giving back to the community. So we will, in terms of the style of the housing that's there, one of the things my wife and I did was over last summer, we drove around to some of the other developments that Ingerman did in the state of Pennsylvania. We wanted to see years after the fact what it looked like and how it was managed. What my wife and I walked away with, we were impressed with how every community that we visited, that every development matched the community. So it didn't look like, well, one of these things just does not belong here. It fed into the community, and that we were grateful for. Part of our partnership with Ingerman is not merely just to build, but to manage, right? So it's not a development and see you later. It's at the very least a 30-year agreement where we're in partnership, where they are on site and we both are going to bear the cost of whatever, any problem that comes up, we both have to maintain that, bear the burden of that cost. So what we're providing, what we're asking for is not for favors. We don't want any favor that will not enhance the community, right? We're here to try to enhance it, not to take from it, right? And all of our relationship over the past 12 years, when I brought one of the commissioners in, when I first took office, and he wanted to talk about stuff. Listen, that's over with. That's done with. How can we help? Whatever the township needs to do, what is it that we can do to assist? And we have maintained that over the 12 years.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Evening. Edgar De Leon, 3328 Kingston Place. Yes, I'm concerned about the water as well, but we're not going to, I understand you got plans on that. But one of my main concerns is traffic. I live on Kingston Place, which runs into, I think this gentleman's street right there. Kingston runs right into the side of it. We're parallel with 22. Can't really see too good up there. If you're going to keep that road open, my concern is the residents from the building flying through that block, trying to make a shortcut. Where if you could picture this, if you're coming parallel to 22, you take Kingston all the way to the dead end, you make that left, and then you make that right to get back onto
Chester.
hmm?
Winchester.
Winchester. Can you think? You know what I mean? So there's about, including with the Cody's Act, I say maybe 20 to 30 houses on Kingston Place alone. I'm gonna say about maybe 10. There's a lot of kids. So what are we gonna do, if anything, to stop that traffic flow? Coming from with Calvary, we don't have that problem. I've never seen nobody coming through, maybe one or two cars. You know, you got residents. If they can't get around Pound Road to get onto Winchester, they're going to go through Kingston. They're going to go through his block. There's really no stop signs there. So that's one of my main concerns as well. And what kind of tell the residents that we're going to get. If you have, let's say, 30 something units, it's going to be 2 cars per unit. Can you do something like that? Restrict the residents to have only 2 per unit. Because if they're going to have 4 and 5, the parking spaces that are being built, it's not going to be enough. Now, on top of the traffic, they're going to start to seep in and park on Kingston. There's like 2 houses right there that face the Calvary right now. They're going to start coming down, parking down Kingston. Now, we're going to have hard times coming our driveways.
So first off, start backwards about management and management of cars. In our lease provisions, we have very strict rules about cars, and we're very strict about towing and enforcing those because we don't want liability and we don't want any problem just like you do. We run a very tight ship when it comes to this. We manage 7,000 apartments. So, we have to enforce rules and we take enforcement of rules seriously. And we regularly build in townships like South Whitehall Township, desirable places, high barrier to entry markets. So we understand what the expectations are from an operational perspective. The second piece of it, when it comes to connectivity to streets, I mean, part of the reason that we wanted to have this meeting is to hear from residents like yourself to understand what some of these local challenges are, what the local concerns are when it comes to, connectivity to your office building, when it comes to cutting through. These are all comments that we're hoping to collect because we are going to meet with township staff again very shortly, take in all the things that we've heard tonight and try to come up with a better plan. So, I don't have an answer for you right now, but I have heard what you are saying and I've heard what everyone's saying about connectivity and about how we're going to control traffic flow because on some respects, the access to 22 and the fact that there is limited amount of road between us and entrance and exit 22 is an advantage for this site. But we also do hear what everyone's saying, that it's an established community. There's a lot of roads and a lot of children and a lot of streets. So we need to make sure that we're routing traffic in a responsible manner. So we thank you, everyone, for those comments. And it's something that we're definitely going to consider as we go.
Appreciate it. Because again, no offense, big companies come the littlest corners. And I've been, with the talks of all the others. I just want nobody to forget also about Kingston Place with the, 10 or odd houses on that block. There's kids, really not paved walkway or curves where somebody could park and know how to park. Both sides.
Yeah.
That 2-way is becoming a 1. Where the driveways are, it's going to be kind of hard to make rights and lefts.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want things taken away from us. I mean, I've only been there 4 years. I've here 40 years, I hear 50 years. I've been there 40 years. And this is my first time, you know, doing this. But
Yeah.
it's a concern for me because when me and my wife found that house, we're thinking maybe this will be our last home. We'll see. But, you know, just the concerns, and mainly over the little kids. I don't have any little kids, but there's a lot of little kids around. Appreciate it. Just keep that in mind at Kingston Place as well.
I hear you.
And I don't want to barge in too much, but I just do want to reiterate, this is a sketch plan, so this plan does not have all the answers. They're being proactive and asking questions and asking for input. So this is a lot of great input from everyone in the audience, and they'll take this and work with staff and hopefully come up with solutions. But it's very early in the process. There's a lot of zoning that has to get worked out before we even discuss detailed stormwater, detailed traffic engineering. It's very early in the process. So right now, it's the developer is gathering in our input and information and moving forward from there. So they don't have all the answers. No one at this stage has all the answers.
I appreciate, you know, just letting us.
Yeah, it's great. We love hearing the input.
Chances are the plan that you see today is going to change. I can almost guarantee it, so.
Hi, Connie Gainey, 1310 Devon Circle. I'm concerned about security. High density is exactly that. A lot of people in a small area, so I would like to know the township's plan to provide increased police protection.
I think I'll probably repeat what David said. It's a little early probably to get into such detail.
At what point do we get more involved in the
Keep
township?
coming to
get
the
more
meetings.
involved?
Keep
Yeah.
coming to the meetings when
And
you see this on.
we do have a public safety committee, so that's another step, which may be a little further down the road. But there's the police force, our fire protection, and the public safety committee.
And we'll be notified of all these meetings, or we just have to look in the website?
Website, probably.
Yeah, they're posted on the website.
Thank you.
Just to respond to. Well, we use Butterfly, which is like a ring, essentially like a corporate ring for our entries to the units. And then we also have video cameras on all our sites, and we meet with our township police partners all the time. They have access to video. We give them access to the extent that we can under law before anything happens, let alone when something does happen. So, you know, we have active 40-hour a week on-site maintenance and maintenance as well as a property manager. So you'll have 80 hours of man hours a week on site from our management company on top of, you know, the video and the tech that is now really driving essentially public safety when it comes to apartments. So.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Mr. Schock, did you get all the feedback you needed? All right, as a sketch plan, we take this under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is 1670 Church Road, Pata Property LLC, Major Plan 2022-104. This is another request for sketch plan review. Greg?
This is an application to further develop the property located at 1670 Church Road. The plan proposes to renovate the existing commercial building, construct a 23-space parking lot, and stormwater management facility on the 3.4912 acre parcel. The property is zoned industrial commercial IC1, special height limitation. Pata Property LLC is the owner and applicant. You did see this plan back on March 29th. In March 26, 2021, the applicant received some variances needed to make the plan work. And the recommendation is The department recommends that the applicant utilize the comments of the reviewing agencies and those of the Planning Commission to assist in the preparation of the preliminary plans.
Okay, the applicant, and introduce any team members you have.
Good evening. Kevin Markle with Barry Eisert and Associates. I have Gurpreet Prada with me from Potter Property. As Greg mentioned, we were here in front of you a couple months ago for our first round of a sketch plan. At that meeting, there were some comments that came up, mainly regarding roadway improvements, widening options, things like that. We did meet with staff, and the plan in front of you tonight is a result of that meeting and those discussions. The revisions to the plans, outside of roadway stuff, there were some comments last time about the location of the fence at the driveway and that potentially prohibiting trucks from getting off the road. This revised plan took a look at that. We've moved the fence further back, or the gate further back into the site, which allows any vehicles that come after hours, they can now access the entire front of the building, the north side of the building, and the back side of the building if they should arrive after hours. So we feel there's plenty of room to now get vehicles off the road should they arrive when it's
the
not
first
open.
thing I look for. So I appreciate that.
So the other part of the revision that we met with staff about was how do we handle the roadway improvements and comments last time about what ultimately happens with Church Road in the future, and the discussion about a potential cul-de-sac to dead end it. And could we dedicate additional right of way to allow that to happen in the future? So one of the plans in front of you depicts what a potential cul-de-sac could look like along the frontage of the road. And as such, we've then determined where that right of way would be to allow that to happen in the future. We feel we can accommodate that with our plan, still make our plan work, and dedicate that additional right of way to allow the township in the future, should you so desire, to construct the cul-de-sac. As part of that, in looking at that, Church Road is currently classified as an arterial road. When you go and put a cul-de-sac there, having it as an arterial road kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So one of the things we've presented on our sketch plan is we would pursue dedicating the additional right of way to allow the cul-de-sac to happen in the future. However, we would look to only do roadway improvements and right of way dedication to local road standards, as opposed to arterial road standards. We feel that kind of makes sense with putting a cul-de-sac there. It's not really an arterial road if you ever, do cut it off. And it just feels like it makes sense with, even in the event you don't build the cul-de-sac, you get to the railroad tracks, it gets necked down to a one-lane road right there at the railroad tracks anyway. So that is really the changes to the plan since last time. I did present a waiver and deferral request letter. Understand this is just a sketch plan. Just thought it would be easier to kind of iterate what we're looking for potentially as we go forward, and spell it out a little bit clearer. So again, what we'd be looking for would be a waiver to not construct Church Road to arterial standards, but to construct it to local road standards, and to also not do any widening within the last, I think it's approximately 100 feet from the railroad tracks. Again, just to stay away from the railroad tracks. There's drainage there, there's guide rails there. The second waiver would again be right in line with that to again just not install curbing all the way to the end of the property line. The third request would be to not install sidewalk to the end of the property line as well. What we depict on the plan on the first sketch plan is what we would propose to construct. We would also then request a deferral to not dedicate the arterial road right away, only dedicate it to local road right of way standards. We also would request at this time to defer sidewalk construction or installation. Understand there are other things to consider there, but we're throwing that deferral request out there just for consideration. Obviously, we would design for it and account for it in our stormwater management. So outside of that, that's really the changes to the plan that we've made. We took the feedback from the Planning Commission and staff from the last time we were here. Really wanted to take a look at, can we make it work with our site and still allow us to do what we need to do? We feel we can. So if this is something, everybody feels okay about, we'd like to move forward in this manner.
I also want to, I appreciate the trip
Oh,
generation
certainly.
analysis. If you could go over that, just
Yeah, we did.
get some new members here.
Oh,
so-
sure. Yeah, so one of the questions raised last time was to evaluate what the impact to additional traffic would be from this facility when it's renovated and opened. So we took a look using the ITE manual and estimated for the closest land use is an automobile parts and service center, understanding this facility won't really be selling parts, but it was the closest land use. And when you use that, what we're coming up with in both the AM and the PM peak hour is an additional 5 vehicles. So really minimal traffic in the peak hour.
Yeah, I looked at the IT generation 11th edition today, and you're spot on. This is probably the best.
It
compared
is
to,
the closest
Quick Lube or
use you
something
can
like that.
find. Yep.
Yeah, there's no set truck service.
Correct.
Yeah. IT's got a lot in there, but not everything.
Every
So
now
some-
and then you need something and it's not there.
And sometimes you get something that you almost have to go somewhere else and compare it to what they're actually generating. So I do appreciate that.
Certainly.
As far as local road standards, would you or your client be opposed if we restricted the parking on Church Road? Like no parking on Church?
Be a problem for us. I mean, we're not certainly planning.
It just goes back to my concerns of trucks parking there, be a site issue. So just something for our staff and Board of Commissioners to digest in the future as this plan evolves. You turn off your mic.
Yep, I hit the button.
Thank you.
Apologize.
Are there any other questions from the Planning Commission?
Yeah, I appreciate coming to the planning commission and taking our input and implementing it. I know you've met with township staff and have made revisions per township staff. So as a planning commission member, I appreciate that.
Certainly. That was part of our reason for coming.
Yeah, we appreciate sketch plans because it
Mhm.
sometimes it heads off problems down the road rather than spending a lot of engineering money.
And this
redrawing.
roadway stuff is exactly one
And
of
it's
those.
a great revitalization of the old Walbert Auto Center. I remember getting gas there in the 70s with my father. So when they used to lock the gas pumps due to the gas crisis. So I appreciate
Might be getting there again soon.
You
Yeah.
never know.
And in terms of the waivers, at the sketch plan stage, it's a bit early to.
Understood. I just
make any
wanted to put them in
decisions
writing
on
just to help,
waivers.
just to help illustrate. That was the whole purpose.
Yeah, me personally, my understanding, and Greg, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the waivers are a result of working in concert with what we want as a township.
Generally speaking, yes, although the last waiver, they are asking for a deferral of the sidewalk, period. And I think they did show a plan. The staff is supportive of what they showed on the plan because it does show sidewalk up until, 100
About
feet from
100
the.
feet, yes.
Yeah, so we would prefer if they actually put in the sidewalk up to 100 feet from the end. But it's a request, so you can, weigh that.
So that's something we'll have to work through.
But,
And like I said, regardless, we would have to show it on the plan, design for it stormwater wise anyway. We're talking about just the physical act of construction of it.
Well, my question, Tony, if you defer it, you still have to put up the escrow for it, correct? Or no?
No, unless there's a special agreement made, it's not
Okay,
held.
so it doesn't have to be funded at that point.
and as you're aware, the warehouse that's under construction at the end of Church at Chapman's
Mhm.
just last week put in sidewalk. So
Understood.
it's coming.
Understood.
So,
Again, it's just threw it out there.
and a lot of our deferrals of sidewalks are getting harder and harder to call in.
Mhm.
And then if you're doing other stuff, it's cheaper to do it when you're doing everything else. So Food for thought.
Point taken.
Are there any other questions of the Planning Commission? Are there any questions from the public? I think we lost our crowd. So as a sketch plan, you get all of the feedback you needed?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. Our last subdivision review is St. Luke's West End Medical Center Short Stay Facility, Major Plan 2022-101, request for preliminary final plan review. Staff presentation, Greg?
This is an application to further develop property located at 501 Citronia Road. The plan proposes to construct a two-story, 52,571 square foot medical office building on the existing parking lot and provide 605 parking spaces on the 17.33 acre parcel. The property is zoned Highway Commercial 1, Special Height Limitation HC1. St. Luke's Hospital of Bethlehem is the owner and applicant. The Department of Community Development recommends that the Planning Commission recommend preliminary final plan approval to the Board of Commissioners, subject to the applicant complying with the following conditions. 1, that the applicant shall execute subdivision improvement, security, maintenance, and indemnification agreements acceptable to the township and its solicitor. Be executed, that sufficient security in a form acceptable to the township be posted. Such security shall be available for draws presentation no further than 60 miles from the township's office, and evidence of necessary insurance coverage shall be provided prior to the plan being recorded. 2, that the applicant address to the satisfaction township engineer the comments of Mr. Anthony Talarita as contained in his review dated May 13th, 2022. 3, that the applicant address to the satisfaction township water and sewer engineer the comments of Mr. Jason Newhard as contained in his review dated May 12th, 2022. 4, that the applicant address to the satisfaction township geotechnical consultant the comments of Mr. Chris Taylor as contained in his review dated May 6th, 2022. 5, that the applicant address to the satisfaction community development department the comments of Mr. Greg Adams as contained in his review dated May 13th, 2022. 6, that the applicant address to the satisfaction of the Public Works Department the comments of Mr. Herb Bender as contained in his review dated May 4th, 2022. 7, that the applicant obtains a stormwater review from the LVPC prior to the plan being presented to the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners. A side note, this was determined to be not necessary, so this can be removed. 8, that the applicant obtains a letter from the LCCD approving the soil erosion and sedimentation control plan pursuant to section 31239E of SALDO. 9, that the applicant obtains a letter from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and/or LCCD approving the NPDES permit application pursuant to section 31239 of SALDO. 10, that the applicant obtains a letter from PADEP approving the sewage facilities planning module or an exemption thereto. 11, that the applicant complies with the February 28th, 2022 recommendation of the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. 12, that the applicant addresses all issues and obtains all approvals deemed necessary by South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners insofar as matters pertaining to the township's water and sewer service are concerned. 13, if deemed to be necessary, the applicant shall dedicate to the township additional right-of-way along the frontage of Citronia Road at a width acceptable to the township. The dedication shall occur prior to the plan being recorded. The dedication shall be by deed of dedication in a form acceptable to the township solicitor, and an opinion of record title prepared by the applicant's counsel indicating that the dedication is free and clear of liens and encumbrances that would affect the township's said use of the property. The applicant shall furnish to the township solicitor a description of the dedication that has been approved by the township engineer, a copy of the current deed for the property showing current ownership, and recites deed book volume and page reference. 14, if deemed to be necessary, the applicant shall dedicate to the township additional right-of-way along the frontage of Broadway and at a width acceptable to the township under the same conditions as the previous condition. 15, that the applicant shall dedicate to the township a utility easement of sufficient size in an area acceptable to township for accessing the water meter pit. The deed of dedication shall occur prior to the plan being recorded. The dedication shall be by deed of easement in a form acceptable to township solicitor and an opinion of record title prepared by the applicant's counsel indicating the easement is free and clear of liens and encumbrances that would affect the township's use of said property. The applicant shall furnish to the township solicitor a description of the easement that has been approved by the township engineer, a copy of the current deed for the property showing current ownership, and recites the deed book volume and page reference. 16, that the applicant coordinates with the township engineer's office to have addresses assigned to the plan of record. 17, that a declaration of covenants and easements for the maintenance of stormwater management facilities prepared by the township solicitor be executed for the maintenance of the on-site stormwater management facilities. 18, that the applicant reconciles all open invoices for township engineering and legal services prior to the plan being recorded. And 19, that the plans are to be revised and deemed to be clean prior to them being presented to the Board of Commissioners. The Planning Commission deadline to act on the plan, soft deadline of June 20th, 2022. The Board of Commissioners' hard deadline to act on the plan is July 20th, 2022.
Thank you, Greg. And now it's the applicant presentation. If you could introduce yourself and your team.
I'm sorry, Joe Buba, Fitzpatrick Linton Buba, attorney for the applicant St. Luke's. We don't have much of a presentation unless you need to hear much from us. I just have one request. I believe item 13 was the deed of, the possible deed of dedication. The timing on that was that prior to plan recording, we would ask if we can move the outside date for that to prior to a certificate of occupancy. We just haven't done our title search yet, so we don't know exactly what's out there. We'll move diligently, and we hope it won't even be an issue, but we'd like not to hold up construction if we don't have to, simply because we're trying to get a bank to sign off or something on the title.
So this is for the right-of-way on Citrone Road, correct? There's not proposed widening of Citrone Road. So this is for the additional right-of-way which they would be dedicating. We don't have any engineering objection. I guess Jennifer can speak for a lawyer.
With that explanation, I don't have any objection.
Yeah, there's no road widening. That's what we thought. So, okay,
Right.
Okay. I don't think we have anything else open, frankly. All the conditions are acceptable to us. The whole team is here to answer any questions. Ray Midlam, Senior Vice President of St. Luke's, is here. Our engineer, Scott Pasterski, is here. But as I said, we've been through this before. Probably the only thing you remember from last time is I said, could I have approval last time? So I will say it again, but I know it's probably a little bit closer this time. So thank you, and we're here for questions.
So you have some additional waivers or deferrals that you've requested. So we need to go through those. So.
Okay, Scott Pasterski with Keystone Consulting Engineers. I can step you through. Just to clarify, at the last meeting, I wasn't here. My colleague was here. I had a conflict that evening. However, there were 4 minor waivers for some drafting issues that were recommended that evening. I believe it was at the March Planning Commission meeting. And the way we've structured the letter, does everyone have it in front of you? It's April 21st, 2022. We've organized the waivers in sequential order relative to how they're presented in the ordinance. But what I will have to do is just point out which ones are new and which ones are not. In the future, we'll make these bolded and italicized to make it a little clearer. But for now, I can just go ahead and step you through one at a time and describe the requirement, the relief we're seeking, and the justification that we've offered for your consideration.
Do you wish to immediately act on his waiver request after each one, or wait until they're all done and then act on them sequentially?
We'll probably act on them as we hear about them.
All right, so we just talked about the first one, which was the right-of-way deferral. And so we've already addressed that, so the deferral request was not denied. We'll do that, but with the condition of the having the waiver, having the dedication prior to occupancy of the building. The next one is section 312-35.
Excuse me. So
Yes.
while neither the township engineer or the solicitor had an objection to that, the planning commission would still need to consider that and vote on it if that's.
Okay, fair enough.
So is there any discussion from the planning commission?
I don't have any discussion.
If not, a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'm abstaining. I do some engineering work.
Okay, moving on to the next one is a waiver request for the sidewalk along Citronia Road. The ordinance requires that the sidewalk be located 1 foot within the required right-of-way. Our plan depicts that sidewalk pulling the sidewalk away from the roadway for various reasons. That has been reviewed by staff. And so we are putting in the sidewalk. We're just looking for a waiver for the placement of the sidewalk to not be in the 1 foot from the right of way. There's a steep embankment there. There's some grade challenges that in part motivate that request. And the current sidewalk as it's proposed will actually pull people away from the intersection, provide connectivity to the apartments to the south. We believe it's in a well-established location.
A safer condition.
Yeah, it's not close to the road.
Any discussion from the planning commission? Has a comment?
Yes, I would suggest that if you waive this, you do this to the extent shown on the plan, and that the sidewalk be placed within a sidewalk easement.
You agreeable to that?
Yes.
Is there a motion with that condition?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay, the next one is section 31235B, 3B. This is in regards to Broadway. It's classified as a minor arterial street. Per the standard construction documents, there's a cartway width of 50 feet required or a 25-foot half width. The existing condition varies from 29 to 45 feet from the east to the west along the Broadway frontage. And our justification of this request is we have a very small, that's a secondary access. The vast majority of the traffic is coming in the Citronia driveway, and there's no roadway requirements proposed or required, frankly, along Broadway. And just due to it's operating fine now, and we'd like, we're not exacerbating that by more than just a minor amount of additional traffic.
If this might be the appropriate time, but the sidewalks in that area were called in, the deferrals were called in. There was an existing deferral along Broadway, along the detention basin. There was work being done to get that designed. This project kind of came in and trumped that and took over that part of it. I'm not seeing it on the plan. Is that going to be addressed in a separate application, or how is that part going to be addressed?
You're talking the sidewalk along the Broadway frontage?
Correct.
Yeah, you're right. It's not currently on the plan. If that's the concern of the township, we can provide that on the plan. The waiver currently here is for the cartway width, but to your point, I understand. Yeah, we're reading in one of the comments, I think it's in Greg's memo, indicates that we should discuss that with the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
Did that small house on Broadway have a deferral?
Yes. So the deferrals that were called in, there's an aerial. See if I can find it. You can see the sidewalk on the side of Citronia. There's sidewalk that ends at the Lexus driveway. The idea was to call in this whole section of Broadway because the KRE 2 project is coming in with sidewalk. So you would essentially have this whole corner tied in with sidewalk that would bring you into the Lehigh County fields. So it was kind of a overall plan that would also tie into Tillman Street, which was also called in as part of that deferral.
My question
calling.
is though, that little house that's in the middle of the pond between the car wash and the KRE properties.
Yes, that
she's
was
going to put it in.
That was included in the deferral request for the car wash because it's under the same ownership.
Okay.
They are not. We're still. That was all pre-COVID. We're still trying to ramp that back up, but they're aware of it.
And that's also something that Atlanta wanted to see.
Correct.
Because that's a corridor
Correct.
of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Just for clarity, the frontage that St. Luke's has on Broadway is right, if someone can point, yeah, right there, just that little bit by the basin. We all know where we're talking about. Okay, so I had mentioned the deferral request for the cartway width. That was in the letter on page 204, 312, 35B, 3B. And again, minor traffic going to that driveway. Most of the traffic is going to Citronia.
Okay, any discussion from the Planning Commission? A motion to approve? Hold on.
I'd make the recommendation that you approve it with the exception of the sidewalk, the location to be determined by the township engineer.
Okay. Motion to approve with that caveat? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay, the next one is deferral request. I believe this is for the right-of-way along Broadway, so I believe this would be the same situation as Citronia, if that needs to be voted on separately. The same reasoning with the making it a condition to occupancy of the building as opposed to plan recording and construction permitting.
Previous paragraph.
Mr. Buba, could you explain that a little bit clearer, please, at the microphone, if you will?
When I asked before if you would change the language in 13 to
By 13, what are you referring to?
condition 13 that Mr. Adams read before, that had said prior to recordation. I asked for that to be prior to a certificate of occupancy. And I believe the next two sections, at least 14 and maybe 14 and 15, both say in the manner as set forth in paragraph 13 above. So what I was saying is by changing 13, that changes the outside date to the CO for the dedications. Does that make sense?
Thank you. That
Okay.
helped me.
Makes sense, yes.
Okay, so there's no separate vote on that one, right? Because it was covered with the first?
Well, they still have to vote on whether they want to.
It's a separate
Wait.
waiver deferral
Yeah.
request, so yes, they do have
Just
to
a
consider
timing
it
thing.
separately.
And this one is, and perhaps you can clarify, while the Citronia Road, you've got a fairly good amount of frontage there that doesn't have much between it and the existing right-of-way. I believe this might have a different issue. Something about the slope going into the basin and stuff like that. And you might want to illustrate that.
Well, this is for right-of-way. The road is classified as a minor arterial street, which actually has, it's a higher classification than Citronia, which I'm not sure why. I did a double take on that, and but that's how it is classified. I guess, our justification is that we don't have nothing in our development is warranting any improvements. The improvements or right of way would be there to support some type of improvement. And we don't have any significant traffic on there that would trigger that. So we understand the township's desire for the right of way, but would like, and we can provide it. We would just like to defer it. I'm sorry, not defer it, but make it a condition of occupancy as opposed to construction.
If I might suggest, since right now the only thing within this additional 5 to 10 feet is the basin fence and the basin itself, I would suggest deferring this
I don't think the
until
township wants.
I don't think we want it right now. I don't think this should be dedicated with this application. We defer it indefinitely until widening or something may occur in the future. But I don't think the township would need this land considering it's only a detention base and the fences appears to be right on the right of way line. So I say we don't dedicate. I would suggest that we do not take this land at that time.
Because then does that become the township's responsibility to maintain? And if you have any stormwater issues, then the township has to.
I wasn't sure why you wanted it, but it was, it was in the letter, so.
Okay, is there any discussion from the planning commission? Need a motion to defer?
Make a motion to defer.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay. Now, the next waiver on the list there was recommended at the March meeting. That's 312B15, so I'm going to skip over that one. And then actually the following three after that were also recommended at the meeting. I'm going to pick up maybe the lower third of page 98 in the planning packet, at page 3 of 4 of the waiver letter. It's 312-3B parentheses 27. And so that is the requirement to show location of permanent monuments. It's not like we have a problem with putting monuments in, but our surveyor has reviewed this. Our surveyor, our survey crew chief has reviewed this, and he felt that the monumentation existing was sufficient to lay out anything associated with this project. So we're requesting a deferral. If monuments need to be installed in the future, no issue doing that, but we just don't frankly see the need for them at this point.
And Tony, you're good with that?
We agree.
Any discussion from the planning commission? Motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay, just have a few stormwater waivers to request. Per the Chapter 296 Stormwater Management -9J, there's a requirement to provide a liner for basins. The stormwater facility that we have proposed is not required because of any township requirement. It's because we actually have a decrease in impervious surfaces, but the DEP has this rule that they treat 20% of existing impervious as pervious. So we are penalized. And so therefore we needed a stormwater management facility to manage this imaginary 20% of pervious that we supposedly paved. So with that, we have to infiltrate. That's DEP's requirement. And we'll get into the other waiver. Karst is not a reason to not allow to not infiltrate. But obviously, we need to infiltrate the water to meet our DEP requirements. So we're to ask a waiver for the requirement to line our facility.
Okay. Any planning discussion? Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, the next waiver is 296-9K. indicating a groundwater recharge not permitted in areas of limestone geology. Once again, it's the exact same justification. We're decreasing stormwater, but we do need an infiltration facility to meet our DEP requirements. And so on that basis, would request a waiver of this section.
Okay, any planning discussion? A motion to approve?
Moved.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain. Okay, last one, section 296-12K. There's a requirement to perform, soil auger testing. Our facility is actually a very small facility. I don't have the number of square foot on the top of my head, but I believe this requirement, the intent of it is if you have a large infiltration area, to perform soil auger testing to get a better idea of what the soil profile would look like. In this case, we needed to dig soil probes, which we're indicating that basically takes the place of the auger testing. Such a small facility, it seems like this requirement was for a much larger facility, so we accomplished the same thing with the soil probes that we would by the auger testing. So on that basis, would request a waiver to that section.
Any discussion from the planning commission? Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now we're at the approval. Do I hear a motion to approve with the 18 conditions, with number 7 having been removed? So now we're up to 18 conditions. And the modifications to 13 and 14. You're okay with that, Attorney Puba? Okay. Do I hear a motion with those changes?
Motion to approve.
I will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Our next agenda item is the transportation infrastructure update.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I just got to get settled here. So we are currently in the public comment period for the TIP. 3 projects again that are within our township. We have the 309 resurfacing or betterment project that we called, $12.7 million, Walbert Avenue into North Whitehall. That's scheduled for 2024 to 2025 construction. So that actually is what we talked about a little bit with the previous sketch plan. So 2024 to 2025, again, that's intersections in all of Route 309 from Walbert up into North Whitehall. Second project is the 309 Tillman Street interchange, 70 million, that's ongoing. So that'll be continuation through the next 4 or 5 years. The last is Monchunk Road. So down the end of Monchunk and I think it's Gilbert Avenue, Girard Avenue, sorry about that.
Gerard Sharesville.
Yes, down at the bottom, there's 2 stoplights. It's 344,000. It's only retiming of those stoplights, but the intent is to have that corridor work a lot smoother so you don't have stacked up lights. So
And
those 3
that
are
one,
on.
that one includes a lighted presidential as well.
Okay. 344, it has, again, the public comment period, it's until the end of this month, approval in June, and it goes into effect in October. So it seems like those are the 3 we've been talking about for the last long amount of time, but it's good to see that they're still on and we're getting the money to move forward.
But as we go along with the comprehensive plan update, we need to think about long-range projects that we would like to see.
we will be talking about that.
Just putting it on people's radar. It's very important, so.
Does staff have any suggestions? We don't need to discuss it tonight, but yes, no, possibly.
There's always ideas.
We got lots of issues. All right. And now we're up to the agenda item 7, comprehensive plan update. You got a full crowd.
So this is the reason why we give the update at the beginning, because now we have no public, well, we have 4 people online. So, you know, I guess the big thing is the workshop meeting on the 7th, where we'll review the utilities, goals and strategies that we refine. We'll be bringing in, at the staff level, when we have that meeting, we'll be bringing in Herb and Mike from the utility and stormwater coordinator to kind of go through those strategies and goals to get their input. It's very important to have those guys and their experience involved in the process. So when we come to you with those revised goals, we'll talk about, they may even show up for those meetings to kind of discuss and answer questions. So I just want to share that with the commission, that we will be bringing in their comments as well.
Okay. The next item is courtesy of the floor. Anybody online, or Greg can go last.
Nothing in the chat.
Thank you. Greg?
No plans were submitted today.
Are we expecting any to boomerang?
I was expecting 2 today, and neither of them showed up, and they were fully aware that 4 p.m. is the deadline. So I'm under the impression that Allentown Duncan and a small lot line adjustment will be coming in June for the July meeting. Yes. Well, you can tell me. I suppose it will be in for June for the July meeting.
Would it, instead of canceling the meeting, would it be an opportunity to expand upon our comprehensive plan update?
It would be.
It certainly would help
To help
push things along.
expedite it and keep momentum going?
Yes, I think we can. We'll have to think about, because we've noticed these workshops as joint meetings. Whether we notice it as a joint meeting or we just keep it as a planning commission workshop, that's a detail we can kind of work through and figure out. And we could potentially do some catch-up work. So we'll strategize and think about how best to structure that meeting.
Because the room's available.
Yes, it will be available. Yes.
And it should be on our calendars.
It's on everybody's calendar. Yep.
Yes.
All right.
We have adequate time to advertise.
All right. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
You're adjourned. Thank you.